Mic check, mic check. All praise to the Most High God. Shalom, Yasharallah. Y'all already know what it is. Oh, this loud. My bad. Y'all already know what it is. It's Tuesday. Tuesday means Bible basics. So, we going to be going over some, it's fairly basic, but it's not exactly basic. Every now and then we try to throw a little curveball in there, you know? We try to give y'all something a little new, something a little special, something a little tidbit. Maybe you take some good notes, you can go confound an atheist. Oh man, but all praise to the Most High. So the title of tonight's lesson is Science Proves God Exists. That's crazy. I forgot I changed it to that title. I changed it like 4 times. I didn't know what I wanted to really go into, but science proves God exists. Now, this argument, or this lesson rather, is proving God exists mainly, not completely, but mainly through the creation itself. And tonight we're going to be using different terms. I have this video that I was watching. I watched it actually a couple of times. It's a man. He might be an Edomite. I'm not sure, but it basically he was born an atheist. He was born that knew nothing about the God, knew nothing about God, nothing about the church, none of that. Didn't believe in a God, and somehow, some way, through him, and he's a renowned physicist, through his study of science, through his study of cosmology and astronomy, he became a believer. And he was like, this Bible has to be true. Mind you, he also went into Hinduism, he went into Buddhism, he went into the Quran. He got to a space where science wasn't answering certain questions, so he said, let me look into the spiritual books. He looked into the spiritual books, and he said the Bible was the only one that got it all right. Which is crazy, because we talk about, well, everybody says their book is true. Right. You got an individual. Here's the thing. People don't listen to us when we say it, but people listen when Esau talks. So I'm going to show you what this man says, and I'm going to show you how he break it down, and we gon' walk through it. Lord willing, I can make it simple enough where it clicks, and y'all going to see how science itself proves God. First things first, let's get a couple of scriptures. Let's go to the book of Psalm. Psalm chapter 14, I want to say it is. Psalm 14 and 1. Let's read that.
This is Psalms chapter 14 and verse 1. The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God.
The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. It's crazy because so many people have gotten to a space where they don't believe in God. A lot of people are walking out of the church and not believing in God. And some people are falling completely out of believing in God. Some people leave the quote unquote Christian God. Some leave completely. But the scriptures tell you only a fool will believe that. Only a fool would truly believe that there is no God. Watch this. Go to Timothy. The book of 1 Timothy, excuse me. 1 Timothy chapter 6, and we're going to read verse 20.
1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 20. O Timothy, keep that which is commanded.
So this is wisdom being given unto Timothy. It says, keep that. Go ahead, read.
Keep that which is committed to thy trust.
Keep that which is committed to thy trust. What I've taught you already, what you've seen to be true, keep that. Read.
Avoiding profane and vain babbling.
It says avoiding profane, offensive, and vain babbling. All of these conversations about nonsense, all of these conversations about, it's a pissing contest, it's an ego thing. All of these conversations that ain't got nothing to do with your soul and your salvation. Paul was expressing to Timothy, Ignore all of that crap. What else did he tell them to ignore? Read on.
And oppositions of science falsely called so.
And oppositions of science falsely so called, right? So I want to do something real quick because I remember, and even to this day, it still happens. People are like, see, Israelites, all y'all believe is, all y'all read is the Bible. All y'all know is the Bible. Y'all don't go to these outside books. Y'all don't read this what the scientists and the physicists and the cosmologists and the astronomers. You don't read what none of them say. Not true. Look, don't your Bible say to avoid science? Right. I'm pissed off I didn't put this in my PowerPoint, but I'm going to read it for you guys. For those of you who want it, go to blueletterbible.org, go to 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 20, scroll down to that word science. That word science is gnosis. The Greek word is gnosis. Is G, give me a second, let me stretch this out so I can give it to you. So I can give you the word. Yeah, G1108, 1108, gnosis. Knowledge that signifies in general intelligence, understanding, a general knowledge of, what does it say? A general knowledge of Christian religion, a deeper, more perfect and large knowledge of religion, such as belongs to the more advanced, moral wisdom, such as is seen in right or living, knowing. This is the actual definition. I was reading the outline of biblical usage. The actual definition is knowing, or the act of knowing, i.e. by implication, knowledge, science. So the Greek word for science is knowledge, knowing, right? Gnosis means to know. So, actually, before I get that, the etymology of the word science, it says it's from the mid-14th century, the state or fact of knowing. What is known? Knowledge of something acquired by study or information. Assurance of knowledge, certitude, certainty. It continues to say knowledge and learning and more knowledge, right? So let's read 1 Timothy one more time from the top. I want to show you something.
1 Timothy 6 and 20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust.
Keep the things that are committed to your trust, the things that you've committed yourself to, you've tested them, they strong and proven. Come on.
Avoiding profane and vain babblings.
Avoid the BS. Come on.
And oppositions of science falsely called
and
so.
Avoid the opposition of knowledge falsely so called. That's what that word science is, knowledge. All of this quote unquote information people be bringing out that they trying to be deep and they think they got these understandings and all of that good stuff, right? He said avoid all of that false knowledge, not literal science. The Israelites understood science. That's how how you think we made the calendar? Astronomy, cosmology. We had to understand the sun, the moon, and the stars. How you think we did? Agriculture is a form of science. You have to understand biology. You have to understand meteorology. So you know when to plant, when what is it called? When to reap, when to sow, all of that stuff.
Even cooking our sacrifices or cooking our food
is a science.
Right.
Is a science. Anybody that's done the sacrifice the right way understands the precision. Understand, even knowing how hot to cook it. Because here's the thing, they didn't have temperature gauges back then in Israel. You had coal, you had rocks, you had fire, and you had to know how to cook it without burning it. All of that is to a science. Israel knew science. We talking about knowledge. Knowledge falsely so called. Fake knowledge, right? So tonight we're going to actually talk about how science in the colloquial sense, science in the sense that people know it to be today, the astronomy, the cosmology, the biology, all of that good stuff, we're going to show you how science proves to you that God exists, right? What I want to do, Rob, do me a favor. Let's go to the video. Let's go to the video. It should be up. And we're going to start. Did I pull it up on a tab? It should be on the laptop. Let me find my my notes because we have a few spaces that I have a few timestamps rather that I want to hit. It's not okay. No, it should go to Google Chrome. It should be up. It should be up on YouTube. You saw what happened? You got it? All right, let me give you the timestamp of what I'm looking for. Ain't that something? I don't, my whatchamacallit done disappeared. That's what it's showing right now? That's fine. The video is just, it's an interview, so as long as you have the whatchamacallit plugged up and they can hear it, it's fine. You're just gonna be looking at two Edomites having a conversation. And while he's doing that, let me do something. For those who may want it, I'll actually drop the link to that video in the chat. 1 second, let me grab it for y'all. And while we waiting on the brother, if y'all haven't yet, y'all make sure to wipe your feet off at the door. Like I always say, hit that like button, hit that share button. If you ain't subscribed to the classes and the channel yet, subscribe to it so we can continue to get this word out. Continue to get this daily bread out, continue to save souls, continue to feed the sheep. That's the ultimate goal. Feed our brothers and sisters. All right, we don't need the visual. You can take it over to the PowerPoint if that's what's showing. Yeah, that's fine. Hit play and go. Dang, that was one thing that I did one in the PowerPoint. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Scroll up to 4 minutes and 17 seconds. And start playing. We're going to play it for like a minute and a half.
And when I went through that Gideon Bible, just looking at the very first page, Genesis 1, I was astounded that it perfectly followed the scientific method. Now, I was not naive. I didn't know where the scientific method came from. Years later, I discovered it had its origins in the Bible's creation text. But as I used that scientific method, I recognized that all the events in Genesis 1 were correctly described and the correct chronological order.
So pause it real quick.
The best I'd found outside of the Bible was the Enuma
Elish, two things.
Which got 2 out of...
One thing is, I know he's very, his voice is very monotone. He talks like that the whole way, right? So he said one thing that he noticed when he went into the different religious texts, he said he learned about the scientific method. Do me a favor. Go to the PowerPoint real quick. Let's talk about this. You saw what happened? The computer? Is it showing on the all right, just pull it out and, let's see, pull it out and put it back in. Maybe you bumped the HDMI is sensitive. So what the scientific method is, it's 6 steps. The 6 steps of the scientific method, the 6 steps of the scientific method are: number 1, ask a question about something you observe. Number 2, Do the background research to learn what is already known about the topic. Whatever it is you observe, whatever questions you may have about the situation, see what's already known about it. Number 3, construct a hypothesis. Number 4, experiment to test your hypothesis. Number 5, analyze the data from the experiment and draw analyze the data from the experiment and draw conclusions. And number 6 is communicate those conclusions to others. So he expressed that the Bible actually followed the scientific method, right? Do me a favor, start it from the beginning of that clip. What did I say, 4:17? And just start it when you're ready.
Page Genesis 1, I was astounded that it perfectly followed the scientific method. Now, I was not naive. I didn't know where the scientific method came from. Years later, I discovered it had its origins in the Bible's creation text. But as I used that scientific method, I recognized that all the events in Genesis 1 were correctly described and the correct chronological order.
Now,
the best I found outside of the Bible was the Enuma Elish.
So now watch this. He said through the scientific method, he saw that the Bible had placed all of he had placed the creation process in its proper chronological order. Why did he say that? Watch this. Go to Genesis 1. I'm going to show you something. He said, through the scientific method, he realized the Bible was the only one that got it right. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and they were talking about how, Genesis 1 doesn't properly explain how the world came about, and this is impossible, and that's impossible, right? Now, I'm going to read it again. The scientific method is ask questions about something you observe. What is something that what are we talking about? The creation of the universe. Science has a process of how they have observed the universe today, and they've reverse engineered it to say this is how it must have went, right? So that's what they've observed. Do the background check on what it is that we've observed. What is it that people know about it already? Okay, we know in this particular time, I think he started like in the 70s or 80s. He's like, okay, what do people know about the universe? What do people know about cosmology? He took all of that. Construct your hypothesis, which is what the scientists had already done. Experiment to test the hypothesis, which is what they do today. When we're talking about, when scientists say that they're looking at the universe as slowly expanding. So what people say is they reverse engineer it at a constant rate to say, okay, the universe is about this many thousands or tens of thousands of years old, right? What was the beginning point? This is what they would do. And then you communicate the results, so on and so forth. So the scientific method to the actual creation of the universe, he said the Bible was the only one that got it right. He said when you read the Quran, they didn't talk about the creation properly. When you read I think he called it the Enuma Elish, they didn't do it right. And he said they were the closest because they got 2 things right at least. He said, but the Bible got every single step right. Now, watch this. Let's go to Genesis 1. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. Let's read that.
Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
So God created the heavens and the earth. God created outer space, the skies, the stars, everything else, and the earth, right? Now, he didn't literally create the earth off rip, and we're going to see that, right? Read on.
Verse 2. And the earth was without form and void.
So it said he created the earth, but the earth didn't have any form. The earth was void. It was empty, and it was formless. What is that talking about? He had all of the tools, all of the elements to create the earth. Now, when you talk about something known as the Big Bang, it talks about all of these elements. It heated up and then it cooled down. Then there was a collision with certain rocks and all of this other garbage. And then after so many times of colliding, then we had, we started to form what we know today as Earth. Scriptures make it simpler than that. All of the elements were there to create the actual Earth. When you look at what's called the periodic table of elements, all of them things was there. That is what the Earth is comprised of, everything on that table, right? It said, but it didn't have form, it didn't have void. It was just the elements were there, right? Read on.
And darkness was upon the face of the deep.
And there was no light. Come on.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now, I did a lesson a while ago. I think it was called Breaking Down Genesis 1. When you look into Genesis 1, it says the Lord, let me see if I can pull up that PowerPoint real quick. It said that the Lord moved upon the face of the waters. Why is that important? Watch this. Where are you? Where are you? Is this it? Salakia. Let me find that proper word. I want to find the right one. That's the heavens. Oh, I must have passed it. Hold on. So when you read, that's crazy. Is this the right? This might be a different PowerPoint. I got like 2 or 3 of these PowerPoints. My bad, guys. In the beginning, Most High cannot be done. Bro, software like stuff. Oh, here it is. So the word right there says, and Salakia. It says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, right? So the word right there for moved is rakab, which means to hover or to flutter or to shake, right? What some people say when you're reading the actual quote-unquote Jewish text, it references to move rapidly, right? Why is that important? Because when you read, it says, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters being the elements, right? It says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Now, went into this whole thing back then because some people said, oh, well, what was that light? Because, the sun and the moon and stuff was made on, what was it, the 4th day. So it couldn't have been that. Well, that light was simply energy, right? So this is from Europia.eu. It says electromagnetic radiation such as light is generated by changes in movement or vibration. So the Lord hovered or vibrated or shook the water, shook the elements. It says light is generated by the changes of movement or vibration of electrically charged particles, such as parts of quote-unquote heated molecules or electrons in atoms. So if something is moving fast enough amongst elements, it will call, actually, hold on, I have another slide. Let me stretch this out. And the same thing, this is, I believe, let me see if this is it or if this is it. I think it's this one. It says electromagnetic radiation such as light is generated by the changes of movement or vibration of electrically charged particles such as parts of the heated molecules or electrons in an atom. Both processes play a role in the glowing firmament of an incandescent lamp, whereas the latter is more so in fluorescent lamps. So what it's expressing is that with the right chemical reaction, you can create light. You can create light through this process. So you look at what's called the Big Bang. The scientists have reverse engineered the Big Bang to try to see how far back it goes. They get to this space known as singularity. This is what they call it. This is where time and space merge. There is no time, there is no space. Everything's at this one finite point. And from this one finite point comes the explosion and comes everything, right? So what he's expressing is that when you're looking at how everything transpired in Genesis 1, it says God created the heaven and the earth. So everything was there. All of the pieces and the elements were there to create the actual heavens and the earth, the stars, the sun, the moon, everything. All of the elements were there. It says, but the earth was without form and void, meaning we didn't have what we have today. Then it says, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So there was no light. But then God hovered amongst the elements, across the elements, and created energy or light. Then it says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Verse 6. Go ahead, read verse 6.
And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters.
It says, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water. Let there be a firmament literally means sky, heavens, right? There will be a heaven in the midst of the waters in the sky and the waters on the earth. It said, let there be a firmament to divide them, right? The atmosphere, essentially. So light and energy was created. An atmosphere was then created. Read on.
Verse 7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so.
Read.
And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
So he called the firmament heaven. That's essentially what it means, the expanse or the skies or the heavens. So the firmament divided the water from the waters, right? Now, we're now beginning to create our ecosystem. Watch this. Read.
Verse 9.
Yeah, verse 9.
And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place.
So it says all of the water inside of this firmament, this bubble, or whatever you want to call it, let it all now be merged into one place. Read.
And let the dry land appear, and it was so.
So now he brought all the water to one place, and then it said, and let the dry land appear. So now he's now forming actual dry land, earth, whatever you want to call it. Initially, none of that was there. Right? Read.
And God called the dry land earth, and gathered together the waters called he seas.
Read.
And God saw that it was good.
Read on.
And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so.
So pay attention to what just happened. This was the point that he was making. So first things first, there was nothing. Well, technically there was something. There was singularity. The Most High God, which is outside of space and time, created this quote-unquote explosion or Big Bang, let there be light. And through that process, light and day, or night and day we had, before he actually even created the sun, the moon, and the stars. Night and day is created. Then he creates an atmosphere, an ecosystem, a dome, a sphere. Those that believe a flat earth, he created a dome. For those that say it's a sphere, he created the atmosphere around the elements that he would then bring into what is the earth, known as the earth, right? Then after he created that in a space where we can now live, what did he do? He took the waters, brought them together. He took the elements to create land, brought them together, and now we have earth. After he's created earth, he now brings forth herb yielding seed. He's now bringing forth vegetation. Why? Because you can't eat if you don't have any vegetation. What happens after he brings forth vegetation? Verse 12.
And the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself, and after his kind. And God saw that it was good.
Right, read.
And the evening and the morning were the third day.
So now trees are now created, right? Grass is created. Vegetation is created, right? Verse 14.
And God said, let there be light in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Now, mind you, the light and the dark were already being divided. The Lord now just placed a body, so to speak, a heavenly body, a celestial body, to be that determining being or determining factor. But remember, in the beginning, night and day, light and dark was already separated. Now he put a ball in the sky to say, this is what's going to actually determine it when you see it. So now, went from nothing, created energy, or went from singularity, as they call it. The elements are created. The firmament is created. The elements are inside the firmament. The elements are now put together as we develop an ecosystem. Then we get vegetation. Then the sun, the moon, and the stars are now up there, of course, to, what's the word? I don't want to call it control. But it's up there for signs and for seasons, which indicate the agricultural process. Now, here's the thing. People say, well, couldn't nothing have been grown without the sun? No, we already had light and day. Now, what did that light look like? I don't know. But it could have been the exact same elements, just minus the fiery ball, number one. Number two, there are actual plants and vegetation that can grow with little to no sunlight. So it's very possible that these things could have been created. Now, after the sun, the moon, and the stars are created, so we can have seasons and days, and we can now start to count the process of time. Drop down to verse 17. What happens?
And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And to rule over the day and over the night.
Come on.
And to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
Verse 19.
And the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Now let's see what happened next. So now we got the sun, the moon, and the stars out there. What does he do next? Read.
And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven.
Read.
And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good.
Read.
And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the fowl multiply on the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day.
So now we have sea creatures. We've got vegetation, we got sea creatures, and we got birds. Verse 24.
And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, and creeping thing, and the beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so.
And then what, 25?
And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind.
Come on.
And everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind.
And then what?
And God saw that it was good.
Read.
And God said, let us make man in our image.
Then mankind was created. So pay attention to the process that just transpired. First, it was just the Most High God. First, it was just what people call in the scientific world singularity. It was this one finite point with all of this energy, right? Then, boom, the quote-unquote Big Bang. Then from that, there was a developmental process of the earth. The elements, the atmosphere is created. The elements are in the atmosphere. The elements are now forming together. The elements now creating actual water and land. And then from there, we have light and darkness already. So then we bring in the vegetation. Then we put the animals in the water because you need the vegetation for things like algae and kale and sea moss and like all of these different things, because some of those animals eat that. Then you bring the land animals, which are going to eat the vegetation, and mankind. So it was a whole process that even science said this is how the process had to be. He said the Bible was the only one that got it right. 10 out of 10. Got the whole process correct, right? Go back to the video. And what's the timestamp that is on right now? 4:51. Let me see. Go ahead, let it play.
Which got 2 out of 14 correct. But the Bible got a 10 for 10 score on the order and the description of the creation events, and 4 for 4 on the initial conditions of planet Earth. And so that's what motivated me to say, you know what? This book, the Bible, deserves serious study. And I spent 18 months reading and studying the Bible, anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half a day, looking for provable error or contradiction. Because I felt if this is from the one that created the universe, there will be no errors, there will be no contradictions.
So he said, if in fact there was errors in here, I'm going to find them. If there's errors, I'm going to find them. He said, it's so far so good, but now I'm going to sit down and I'm going to really start looking into this and see if there's any errors. Go ahead. Keep playing.
I realized I'd not found a single provable error or contradiction. Instead, I found over 100 places where the Bible had accurately predicted future scientific discoveries. In fact, at that time, I was a sophomore physics student
Pause it real
at the
quick.
University of British.
Now, he said with all of the research that he did, all of the things that he looked into, he said, I didn't find, you know, all of these people that be talking about these contradictions in the Bible. The Bible contradicts itself. Bible ain't got no science. This is, I'm sorry, I didn't even give you guys this man's name, hon. His name is Hugh Ross. He is, I'm going to pull up his credentials right now. Hugh Ross. Astrophysicist. He's a Canadian astrophysicist, and he's also a Christian apologist and an old earth creationist. Now, remember, if you look at the actual title of this particular video, I put it in our men's chat. Let me see what the name of, did I put it in here? I thought I did. No, just kidding. I think the name of the video, actually I have it right here, I'm tripping. The name of the video is Why This Astrophysicist Left Atheism and Found Jesus. Here's the thing. He was born an atheist. If you watch like the very first part of it, he said his journey started when he looked up at like 7 years old. He looked up at the stars and said, are the stars hot? His parents told him yes. He said, why are the stars hot? His parents said, you will need to go to a library to find that out. From that point on, he was down the rabbit hole going into astrophysics. That was his thing. Didn't grow up in a church family, didn't grow up in a church home, and he got to a space where science wasn't answering certain questions, so he went to spiritual books. Spiritual books, certain of them weren't answering questions, and then he opened up the Bible, and they were answering his questions. This man, it's because, you know, people are like, oh, you pushing religion. This man ain't know nothing about religion. And he's a renowned astrophysicist. And I'm going to show you in a little bit, there are other scientists that are now starting. These are physicists. These are philosophers. These are astronomers that are now starting to what they call concede to deism. We'll get into it in a little bit, right? Do me a favor. Let me see something if I have to put this in there. Let me see something. Okay, yeah. So let's go, fast forward. We're going to backtrack in a little bit. Fast forward to 7 minutes and 26 seconds. 7 minutes and 26 seconds. You got it? All right, go ahead, play it.
Columbia. And when I came to that conclusion,
fast forward
it was the same week our physics professor said, here's an assignment.
Fast forward it to
Calculate
7 minutes and 26 seconds.
I don't know if this is too much sort of off the top of your head or whatever, but I am so fascinated what those 10 criteria were that you had in mind, and then what those 4 criteria were. So I don't know if that's better just to tell people to go to a certain article or whatnot, but I want to point to
No,
that.
I could do that.
Okay.
I mean, I do cover it in detail in my book, Navigating Genesis. But like step 1 of the scientific method, do not interpret until you first establish the frame of reference or the point of view. And for the 6 days of creation in Genesis 1 tells us the Spirit of God is hovering over the surface of the waters of planet Earth, underneath the cloud layer, not above the cloud layer. And that's also clarified in Job 38, where it says that God had blanketed the seas of the early earth with clouds that kept the seas dark. So that's the frame of reference. Genesis 1:2 also gives you the 4 initial conditions, that it's dark everywhere over the surface of the waters cover the whole surface of the earth, and the earth is formless and empty. It's unfit for life and it's empty of life, but now the Spirit of God begins to work. And what you see in the 6 days of creation is God step by step filling the earth with life and preparing the earth physically for his creation of human beings. 10 specific creation events, and as I mentioned, they're all correctly described relative to the established scientific record, and they're all in the correct chronological order.
Pause it.
Now,
So, exactly what we just broke down. He said, according to the scientific method, according to the scientific research, Genesis broke it down to a T. Well, that's because this Bible is, 1600s. No. No, it's not true. Dead Sea Scrolls, which has the majority of what we have here today, is 2nd century or 3rd century BC. This was before any of them came up with these different scientific methods. It was laid out. This was the process. The Masoretic text broke it down as well. These were translated from Hebrew text that broke it down this way before the scientists came on the scene, the cosmologists, the astronomers, and all of them that wanted to try to break it down. We was already talking about that in the Bible. Now, he said, I went to the Hindu books, I went to all of these other books, and the Bible was the only one that got it right. And all science did was come in and further verify and confirm the Bible in the actual creation process, right? Now, let's back it up a little bit. Let's go back to that 550 mark. I thought this was interesting. Go back to the 550 mark. And we're going to start the video from that 550 mark. And play it when you got it.
At that time, I was a sophomore physics student at the University of British Columbia. And when I came to that conclusion, it was the same week our physics professor said, here's an assignment. Calculate the probability that one of the students in this class will be killed by a sudden reversal of the second law of thermodynamics within the next 7 days. That probability is roughly 1 part in 10 to the 80th. It's so extremely remote that we realize such an event has never happened anytime, anywhere in the universe. But what I had just determined is that these predictions of future scientific discoveries showed that the Bible was at least 10 to the 220 times more reliable than the second law of thermodynamics. And since I trusted my life in the reliability of the second law of thermodynamics, I said the only rational thing to do is put at least that much confidence in the message of the Bible.
So, pause it.
So that's a motive.
Now, I know some of y'all like, what the hell did he just say? Right? But I wanted you guys to hear that whole piece. He said around the time that he was understanding the scientific method, he was a sophomore in college. And his professor had said, calculate the probability of somebody dying due to the reversal of the second law of thermodynamics. let's go to the PowerPoint real quick. I told you I'm going to try to make it simple. It's some of these things you can only make it so simple. Next slide. Did it freeze? Are they the same one? Oh, we'll close out the one that's not working. I might have accidentally opened two of them over there. All right, go to the next slide. We got to get that thing updated or something. Let me see something. They should be both. Salakia for the technical difficulties, family. Is that it? Go to the next slide. There we go. So, the second law of thermodynamics can be simplified as follows. And you probably still won't understand this, but you'll understand the point that's being made. Heat flows from hot to cold. Energy naturally moves from something warmer to something cooler, not the other way around. Entropy always increases. In any natural process, the overall disorder, or entropy, of a system will tend to increase, meaning things will become more and more disordered. Entropy is a measure of randomness or disorder in a system. This means that things naturally move toward a state of greater disorder or randomness over time. In simple terms, the universe tends to become more disordered and energy becomes less usable as it spreads out. Now, this is not a theory. This is scientific law. That means every time the law of thermodynamics is in play, it's going to play out this exact same way, right? Next slide. This was the question that Hugh Ross posed. What is the probability that someone will be killed because of the reversal of that law that we just read, the second law of thermodynamics? The reversal of the second law of thermodynamics is often referred to as Maxwell's demon in thought experiments, or time reverse thermodynamics, but it doesn't occur naturally. In simple terms, Maxwell's demon is a hypothetical scenario where a quote-unquote demon could sort fast and slow-moving particles, reducing entropy and seemingly violate the second law. This suggests that entropy could decrease, allowing heat to flow from cold to hot without external work. Meaning, if I start a fire and there's no external like oxygen or propane or something, it's going to eventually die out. It's going to travel from hot to cold and it's going to get cooler. That's law. It's going to always happen. They're saying the reversal of it is somehow, some way there's an external force that's causing things to heat up even more with whatever help that is getting. We're reversing the law of thermodynamics. It says, which means where entropy decreases, which means disorder will reduce, which is essentially the opposite of what naturally happens in our universe. In short, if the second law were reversed, energy could spontaneously flow from cold to hot, and things will become more ordered over time instead of disordered. So the law, meaning every single time the second law of thermodynamics kicks in, it's going to run this way. The question was, what is the probability that someone will die because of the reversal of this law? Go to the next slide. He said the probability is 1 in 10 to the 80th, 1 over 10 to the 80th power, which is 1 out of 79 zeros. I don't even know what number that would be. 1 out of a gazillion. I don't know the actual number. Then I gave it to you in decimals. 0.0000079 times 1, right? Now, remember, I did this so you guys can understand. 0.01 is 10%. That's what 0.01 stands for. I'm sorry, 0.1, excuse me. 0.1 is 10%. 0.01 is 1%. So that would be a 1% chance of this ever happening. 0.001 is less than 1%. So 0.00 blah, 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 blah means virtually it's impossible for this law to be reversed. So he's telling you how reliable this law is. This law will not change. This law cannot be reversed. This law cannot be gone against. He's saying, I have that much faith in this law. That's what he's saying. The second law of thermodynamics stands this empirical. Go to the next slide. Why is that important? Because Hugh Ross said the Bible is 10 to the 220th power more reliable than the second law of thermodynamics. Now, mind you, he basically said the second law of thermodynamics will never fail. That's essentially what he said when he said, what are the odds of the reverse of the reversal of the second law of thermodynamics? What are the odds someone will die from that? Basically 0. Never. It will never happen because this law will not change. He said that's how solidified this law is. He said with all of that, the Bible is 100 million gazillion badillion times more reliable than that second law of thermodynamics. Now in science, law is a big deal. Right. Not theory, not the theory of evolution, not the Big Bang theory. We talking law. Law means you don't change. Law means it's solidified. Law means we done tried it and proved it a bazillion times. And he said the Bible's more reliable than this law. Just for reference, it's 220 zeros behind that one. Here's the thing. If it's 7 zeros behind that, actually, if it's 6 zeros behind that one, that's 1,000,000. So it would be 1,000,000 times more reliable than the second law. That's only 6 zeros. 7 zeros, I believe, is in the 100 millions or tens of millions. Another zero is hundreds of millions. Another zero is billions. So we're in like the made-up numbers, the gigabillions, the gajillions. That's where we are. That's how much more reliable he's saying the Bible is than the scientific law. Now, let's go back to the video. Let's fast forward to 11 minutes and 16 seconds. 11 minutes and 16 seconds is where we will start. When you got it, hit play. $11 minutes and 16 seconds.
Against this comment on this channel a lot, and it sort of comes out of, I've been doing some sort of debate commentary when it was like John Lennox and Richard Dawkins debating, and the big question comes out of, is it an uncreated eternal universe or an uncreated eternal God? And there's sort of is almost like this false equivalency if you believe that those are both equally theoretically feasible. I want to zoom in on what you were saying about the actual science regarding the universe, and because I think a lot of people, it seems like, still believe that it could be eternal, even before getting into multiverses and all of that. It seems like a lot of people hold a steady state type of model in their mind, and I'm just wondering if you can actually kind of talk the audience through what are the options at this point, and what is almost like the development of thought around the origin of the universe, and where are we actually at today, to try to clear up some of this confusion.
Well, what bothered me about reading the great philosophers is that they talked about time and space being eternal. I also saw that in the Eastern religions. What I saw in the Bible was that space and time are not eternal.
Pause it.
God creates space and time.
God creates space and time. Time is not eternal. He says science tries to teach you that the universe is eternal, therefore time is eternal. Science tries to teach you, certain Eastern philosophies try to teach you that the universe and time is also eternal. He said, but in the Bible, it don't say that. Let's go back to Genesis 1. Genesis 1 and 1.
In the beginning.
In the what?
In the beginning.
One more time.
In the beginning.
Read.
God created the heaven and the earth.
In the beginning. In order for something to have a beginning, it has to be created. It has to be started. So they're showing you from the jump. The Bible will tell you that time had a beginning.
That's right.
In the beginning. Now, he was talking about the false equivalency of some people saying, well, the universe is eternal and God is eternal. No, God is eternal. The universe isn't. Matter of fact, let's get Isaiah. Let's see what the Bible says. The book of Isaiah. Let's get Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40 and 28.
You said 28.
Verse 28, Colin.
This is Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 28. Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard that the everlasting God.
That the what?
The everlasting God.
Come on.
The Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainted not, neither is weary.
So it says that the Most High was everlasting. Everlasting means he's been here forever. He will be here forever. Go to Psalm chapter 90. Let me see. 90 and 1. We're going to read 1 and 2.
Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting.
For how long?
Everlasting to everlasting.
Read.
Thou art God.
You've been God from everlasting to everlasting. God has been eternal. The universe, the earth, and all of that was not. There was in the beginning, there was a beginning. Now, here's the thing. Science will tell you that there was a beginning. As a matter of fact, it might be in my other. No, I think I put it in here. Yep, I did. Go back to the PowerPoint. Go to the PowerPoint and go to the next slide. I did put this in my Genesis 1 lesson, though. But this is from Stephen Hawking, the crippled doofy Edomite. I couldn't remember what it was called. The quadriplegic. There it is. Whatever he was. He couldn't talk or none of that. The Most High cursed him. I'm going to read this. This is something that he said. It was at a conference in the Vatican in 1981 that I first put, this is Stephen Hawking, that I first put forward the suggestion that maybe time and space together formed a surface that was finite in size. This is also called singularity. At one point in time, space and time were, it was not space and time separate. It was called space-time, meaning they were merged together. But did not have a boundary edge. Together with James Hartle from the University of California, I worked on that physical condition on I worked out what physical conditions the early universe must have. If space-time had no boundary in the past, our model became known as the no-boundary proposal. It says that when we go back toward the beginning of our universe, space and time become fuzzy and cap off, somewhat like the South Pole on the surface of the Earth. Asking what came before the Big Bang is meaningless. That's ironic. According to the no-boundary proposal, because there is no notion of time available to refer to. It would be like asking what lies south of the South Pole. So, Stephen Hawking said at one point in time, space and time were merged. And space and time becomes fuzzy the closer we get to singularity, the closer we get to the beginning of the universe, the closer we get to that finite point, things get fuzzy. Then when we hit that zero mark, it's like, well, it doesn't matter what happened before then. Huh? This is how you get around believing that there's a God. It don't matter what happened then. It does, because now I want to know what was before then. The creator who was outside of those boundaries is what was before then. Go to Peter. Show you something. Book of Peter, 2 Peter 3 and 8.
This is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8.
This is what was before the universe. Read.
But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing,
What Peter say?
that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years.
Come on.
And 1,000 years as one day.
Now, a lot of people take this just to say, you know, to the Lord, 1,000 years is a day and a day is 1,000 years. Okay? True. But what really is this saying? As it pertains to time, what?
The Most High is timeless.
The Most High is time. He's not within the confines of time. A day to him is like 1,000 years to us. 1,000 years to him could be like a day to us. He said, time ain't got, I'm not tied down to time like y'all, because I'm outside of time. I'm not tied down to time and space like y'all, because I am time and space. I created time and space. I stand behind that, and I can watch time and space because I am more than time and space. But what scientists will do is this. Well, we don't know. It gets fuzzy when you get too far back. We don't know. Because you don't want to say it was God. But a great point that Hugh Ross brings out, he's going to say it. I think I have it timestamped. He's going to say it. Physicists, astronomers, it says a lot of them are now conceding to deism. Now, deism and theism are two different things. We'll get to it in a minute. But they're now conceding at least to deism. That is it. That is a big deal. Because for those people who are full-blown atheists, a lot of scientists, I believe in science. Hell, science is starting to believe in God.
Right.
Science is starting to believe in God. And Hugh Ross says in his video as well, I don't know if I have this part timestamped, but he said, every single day that we do more study on this, the proof of God gets, the argument for God gets 1,000 times stronger every day. That's what he said. Go back to the video. Okay, yeah, we're not going to get that yet. Go back to the video. Actually, keep playing it. We're going to play it for about 2 minutes. I think it's at like 12. What is that, at 12:45 right now? Hold on real quick. Let me catch up with you. All right, go ahead, play it.
So that's a key factor that separates the Bible from the non-biblical religions of the world. And I was doing this study at the same time that physicists in Britain and South Africa were developing the first of the space-time theorems. We now have over 30 of these space-time theorems, and they're based on two fundamental assumptions. The theorem is true if the universe contains mass, and you and I are living proof that the universe indeed contains mass. The second condition is that the equations of general relativity reliably describe the movements of massive bodies in the universe. Now, when I was first exploring this in my teenage years, astronomers could only prove that to be correct to about 1 or 2% precision. We can now prove that that's correct to better than 15 places of the decimal. So today there's no basis for doubting these two conditions. And what the theorem states is that space and time have a beginning. Space and time are created, which implies that there must be a causal agent outside of matter, energy, space, and time that creates our universe of matter, energy, space, and time. And so the space-time theorems basically established it's the God of the Bible that created the universe, a God who has the power to create space-time dimensions
Pause
at
it.
will and remove.
So, space-time theorem. Let me find this thing. Go back to the PowerPoint and go to the next slide. You forgot to switch it. Space-time theorem. According to the current understanding of the space-time theory based on the Big Bang model, because that is the prevailing argument of how the universe began, it's the Big Bang. According to the current understanding of space-time theory based on the Big Bang model, the universe is considered to have a beginning, originating from what I called earlier, singularity, where space and time themselves came into existence. Essentially, space-time theory implies that the universe did not exist before the Big Bang as we currently understand time and space. Bring it back to us. Space-time theory. The scientists are saying, okay, theoretically, after the research that we're doing, based on the Big Bang model, which is the prevailing argument of how the universe started, space and time were at a point of singularity at one point. And before the Big Bang, there was no such thing as space and time. So what Hugh Ross was saying was they're agreeing that there had to be some causal agent, meaning an entity outside of time, space, and matter to cause this reaction to create time, space, and matter. But it's not God. Don't you dare say it's God.
Right.
Well, what is it? We don't know.
It's the God of time, space, and matter.
No, no, absolutely not. No. This is what we're dealing with. This is why the Bible said, don't argue about science falsely knowledge falsely so called. Because Israelites don't disagree with science. Israelites disagree with false science that contradict God and the truth.
Come on.
That's what we got a problem with. People be contradicting God and the truth. That's the science or the knowledge that we have a problem with. So that was space-time theory. Go to the 16-minute mark, 16 flat. Let me get there. I'll start it there. Uh-oh, did it? What happened? Oh, there we go. You got it? All right, go ahead.
But what I've noticed in the last 5 years, books produced by atheist physicists and astronomers are conceding deism. I mean, even Lawrence Krauss is saying on page 173 of his book, A Universe from Nothing, that we cannot take deism off the scientific table. The force of the space-time theorems established there must be a causal agent beyond space and time that creates our universe. The debate has really shifted. Is this God, this deistic God, a theistic God? Is this God a personal being? And that explains why I've written 7 books on cosmic fine-tuning over my career, because that is the go-to evidence to establish we're dealing not just with a transcendent causal agent, but a personal being.
What was it?
Because
now, you heard what they said, right? It said now physicists are conceding deism. What does that mean? To concede something means you got it. You know what? I'll let you have that. You know what? You're probably right.
Right. I don't have an argument.
I don't have an argument there. I got to agree with it.
Right.
Conceding deism. Now, he said the new argument that's developing is not whether or not God did it. They said it's deism versus theism. Go to the PowerPoint. Let's explain the difference between deism and theism. It's like 9. I'll get it to you. Just switch over to PowerPoint. I can move you. Oh, okay. Yeah, that one. Now, atheist physicists are conceding deism. Deism is the belief in the existence of a supreme being, specifically of a creator who does not intervene in the universe. The term is used chiefly of an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th century. This is 16 and 1700s. That accepted the existence of a creator on the basis of reason, but rejected the beliefs in a supernatural deity who interacts with humankind. Now, deism versus theism. Deism holds that a God must exist based on the evidence of reason and nature only, but not on supernatural evidence. Some deists believe that a God created the world, but this God is indifferent to it. Theism holds that there is one God who is actively engaged with the universe in some way. So we are theists. We believe that God interacts with us. We believe God cares about us. We believe that God is personally invested in us. Deism believes there's a God, there's a creator, but he just created everything, but he don't bother nothing else, and he don't bother humans, he don't bother the people, he just created everything. Initially, people were saying, ain't no damn God. Now they're like, man, you know what? We can't, like, when you get to the beginning, this good argument about who created everything. Damn, we probably won't have to say as a God. You'll probably have to say that. Now, here's the crazy part. Think about this, because a lot of people start to fall out of the belief of God. Why is that? If you can continue to make us believe that God does not exist, you can continue to manipulate morality, manipulate righteousness, because it'll all be subjective.
You can eliminate right and wrong.
Manipulate the hell out of right and wrong. I remember I was watching a debate, and you can bring it back to us. I was watching a debate, and the guy said, it was a really good point. He said, so is murdering someone, is that wrong? Well, yes. He said, according to what standard? He said, if you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, we believe in God, and God said morally this is wrong. You don't believe in God, but you're saying morally this is wrong. According to what social construct? Right. Because you don't have a deity. That's your opinion, because that was the argument. It's your opinion. What's your opinion that killing someone is wrong? Right. No, I mean, let's be honest, like across the whole world, no, that's not true. Depending on the situation, no, it's not. But some people here will say it is. Where do you get your morals? It's that simple. If they can keep us from believing in a God, especially in the God of the Bible, the Most High God, they can keep us in sin. If they keep us in sin, they stay in power. It's a process to this. There's a grand master plan to all of this. We almost done. Let me see if I wanted to pull that other one. Yeah, go back to the PowerPoint and let me pull this next slide. No, the next one. Yeah. So he brought up this person, Lawrence M. Krauss. He is a world-renowned physicist. His words were, we cannot take deism off the table. There must be a causal agent. There must be a reason why these things are happening. There must be something causing this to transpire. So, even those that were initially against God altogether, they're now saying, well, okay, we'll say it's a God just because, based off, we go off of science and observation and reason. So I won't argue with you that it's not God, but it's just deism. It's not theism. He's not really interacting with people. There is no such thing as supernatural. This is just there was something that had to jumpstart the force to create everything here. Okay, we'll say it's God. That's the new argument. Go back to the PowerPoint. I'm not the PowerPoint. I'm sorry. The video. Go to the. I like this point. Go to 18 minutes and 10 seconds. I was going to bypass that, but I do actually like that point. 18 minutes and 10 seconds and play it when you. Oh, wait. Hold on. I got a commercial. I'm trying to catch up. All right. Play it when you.
$5. That is all it takes to make a difference in this election.
Their sin and evil. And we actually are able to establish numbers on the degree of fine-tuning. If people want to see that, we have at reasons.org/fine-tuning a 300-page compendium, which gives all the calculations of the degree of fine-tuning that's necessary, for example, just to get human beings on one planet in the universe. And that probability is less than 1 chance in 10 to the 1600th power. That's 1600 zeros after the 1. And I compare that with the very best examples of human inventiveness and design. And there we get like 1 chance or 1 part in 10 to the 25 or 10 to the 26. So we're getting what the one that created the universe is not 26 zeros after the 1. We got 1600 zeros after the 1, which makes the point that the one that created the universe at a minimum is 10 to the 1500 times more intelligent, more knowledgeable, more creative, more powerful, more caring than we human beings. And those are only attributes that a personal being can manifest. But the degree to which we see these personal attributes, again, isolates the God of the Bible from the gods of the other major religions of the world. It's the God of the Bible that is so intimately related with his creation.
Now, he said, the degree of fine tuning is so precise that it had to. He said there was a 1 in 10 to the. What did he say?
He said like 16.
10 to the 1600th. Something. Basically, the chances of this randomly happening is 1 in a gabajillion. That's the best way I can do it. It's basically impossible. It's impossible for this to be a result of randomness. Then he used an example somewhere in that same region. He was talking about. He said, "I'm going to give you an example." He said, "Imagine." He said, "Imagine you were." He was using another example that somebody else said. Imagine someone has a firing squad. You're about to be executed for judgment or whatever. Somebody has a firing squad, all sharpshooters, and when they give the green light to shoot you, you're blindfolded. They give the command to fire, and everyone fires, and then you remove the blindfold and everyone missed. He said the only conclusion I can come to with them being sharpshooters is they had to have wanted to miss, because the probability of every single one of those sharpshooters missing is basically 0. He said it's the same context with the universe and human beings being here in this particular realm, living today. He said the probability of that is basically 0, impossible, unless there was an intelligent designer. That was the point that he was making. So he speaks to the degree of fine tuning. Let me see. Do I want to get that first?
He's basically saying there's absolutely no chance of randomness at all whatsoever.
Absolutely. Then he does this thing called appeals to infinity, because he says what happens is when scientists don't have an answer, they appeal to infinity. So what he started talking about is the theory of multiverses. And so there's an infinite amount of multiverses, and we just happen to be the lucky ones to hit the lottery on Earth. That's what he was explaining. Then he went on to talk about, well, if you want to play that game, then if we have the infinite multiverses, then he goes on to say in all of these multiverses, in one of these multiverses, there's a specific tree that grows out here. He said in one of these multiverses, that same tree is growing, and it will perfectly carve out an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of wood, which is essentially paper. It's going to fall into some ink, and it's going to do that over and over until these books are created. So it wasn't your mind that created it. It was the multiverse that did it. When you decide to appeal to infinite, you can play with anything.
Right.
So that was the whole point of what he was saying. And I was like, it's a great analogy. It's a great analogy, right?
Right.
Now, fast forward to 21 minutes and 54 seconds. It's like a 3-minute clip we're going to listen to. I may or may not interrupt it. 21:54. 21 minutes, 54 seconds. And we're going to play it to like 24 minutes.
Now, what some atheists have done is to propose what's called the multiverse. In fact, I've been speaking on fine-tuning since the 1970s.
So this is about the multiverse.
And I remember telling audiences in the 1980s that the evidence for fine-tuning that points to the God of the Bible is getting a minimum of 1,000 times stronger with every month of new scientific discoveries.
Every month, not every day. I'm sorry, guys.
It's exponentially increasing in the degree of evidence.
Pause it real quick.
And eventually,
Because I said it earlier. I think I said every day. He said every month the argument for a God existing gets 1,000 times stronger every month, not every day. Salakia, guys. All right, go ahead.
the case for a personal God is going to become so overwhelming that atheists will have nowhere else to go but to propose there's an infinite number of universes.
Oh, this is the part.
Where they're all different from one another, and we happen to live in the one lucky universe where everything is just right. Mm-hmm. But what I told audiences in the 1980s, whenever any skeptic appeals to infinity, they've got nothing. I basically explained to lay audiences, infinity plus infinity is infinity. Infinity times infinity is infinity. Infinity to the infinity power is infinity. So by appealing to infinity, you can explain anything you want. Now, what I've done in my book, The Creator and the Cosmos, 4th edition, is to give you an analogy that drives home that point.
This is the infinity
If there
point that I
really
brought
is
up
an
earlier.
infinite number of universes where they're all different from one another, you'll have an infinite number of planets identical to our present planet Earth. And on those infinite number of planet Earths, you're going to have an infinite variety of birch tree species. And birch trees have the property that they peel thin white pieces of bark. But if you get an infinite variety of birch tree species, one of those species, at least one, will peel thin white pieces of bark that are perfectly rectangular, that measure 8.5 by 11 inches. And these pieces of bark will fall on soils with random chemicals in them that'll make random markings on those pieces of birch bark, which will duplicate every equation, every photograph, every paragraph, every diagram, and every scientific research paper that's ever been published. So those millions of scientific research papers, they did not come from the minds of scientists. The multiverse did it. So you're basically exposing the philosophical fallacy of appealing to a multiverse to get around the design. If you do that, there is no design anywhere. Right. All of our human designs are negated at the same time.
All right, pause it.
That's fascinating.
So what happens is he's saying that there's some scientists that appeal to infinity and the multiverse. He said, but here's the thing. Scientists will run to the infinity argument when they ain't got nothing. And so he said in one of his books, he uses this particular analogy to speak on the infinity argument. He said, if that's the case, then none of your brilliant minds created these books, these photos, these graphs, these studies. He said the multiverse created it. If you want to play that game, then it can be played that way. But that shows you how foolish that it is. But he said, when people want to appeal to infinity, is because they've been backed into a corner. They don't have anything. Now, real quick, I do want to get fine tuning. Go to the PowerPoint real quick. We're going to talk about cosmic fine tuning. We're going to touch it real quick.
It's a little touch of cognitive dissonance.
Definitely a touch of cognitive dissonance, because these are the same individuals. You talk about science is knowledge through studying. That is, science means knowledge. Right. Science means knowledge through study. You can't study or observe a multiverse.
Right.
You can only assume it because we have no proof of another universe. This is just a theory, because I'd rather believe there's multiverses than believe there's God.
Right.
That's ultimately what it is. Cosmic fine-tuning is the idea that the universe's physical constants, the universe's laws, the universe's boundary conditions are finely tuned for life to exist. The argument is that if these constants were slightly different, life as we know it would not be possible. For example, the distance of the planets, the distance of Earth from the planets, the other planets, the stars, and the sun. The expansion rate of the universe, meaning if it expanded just a fraction faster or a fraction slower, life as we know it would be of non-existence. Gravity. I'll give you even more. You can bring it back to us now. I'll take it even further. We're talking gravity. What about the biosphere, the ecosystem in itself? The fact that the trees breathe out oxygen, which we consume, and we breathe out carbon dioxide, which it consumes. The life cycle. What about the system that God has created for you, your respiratory system, your digestive system? What about your skeletal structure and how it just so happens to cover all of your vital organs? What about, what am I missing? What about the fact that the body itself, the DNA itself is so finely, to every human being has very similar DNA with slight differences. This is where we get different phenotypes and things of that nature. But the genetic code overall is the same. But the genetic code, if you research how complex DNA is, every ring or rung of the ladder has to be proper in order for a human being to be a human being.
Right.
Think about how complex DNA is. Go look up what they got YouTube videos on it. Look up the complexity of DNA. There is literally a very minute shift in DNA that changes him from a man to a monkey, a man to a banana. It's so complex, but yet it's so finely tuned that he's a man. The DNA in his construct is so perfectly tuned that he is who he is today. But science would rather say, nah, there got to be a bazillion different universes. That's what it is. No. It is the Father. It is Yahweh. Go back to Psalm 14:1. I want to read that one more time. The book of Psalm, chapter 14 and verse 1.
The fool has said in his heart, there is no God.
Uh-huh.
They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good.
The fools have done abominable works. The fool has said, there is no God. The fool, there's none good. We see here, and I wasn't going to overload you with no scriptures because I didn't have to. I went to the white man's work itself. And the white man himself, not just any regular base man, not of the baser sort. This is a world-renowned physicist who spoke about other world-renowned physicists. Oh, also, hold on. That was something that I wanted to bring up as well. You guys can write these names down. Rodney Holder. He's an astrophysicist and a theologian. Antony Flew, A-N-T-O-N-Y. Antony Flew. He's a philosopher. He's not a physicist, but he's renowned in this topic. They call him a quote unquote significant thinker in this topic. Paul Davies, he's a physicist. Freeman Dyson, who is also a physicist. And I'll just read the quick synopsis. Flew, once a leading atheist, this man was a full-blown God don't exist individual, adopted deism later in life. He argued that the complexity of life and the fine-tuning of the universe led him to believe in an intelligent creator, although he rejected organized religion and miracles. Rodney Holder has written extensively on the compatibility of modern cosmology and deism, particularly when discussing fine-tuning in the universe. He suggests that the existence of multiple universes, the multiverse theory, might imply the need for a deistic creator. He believes there is a multiverse, but he doesn't believe there's an infinite amount, but he's saying a deity had to have created it. Paul Davies, he's a physicist. Though he's not explicitly a deist, he doesn't wholeheartedly believe it, Davies has expressed his views and they lean toward deism, meaning he's fighting it, but he's like, damn, I can't argue it. He often speaks about the laws of physics and how they seem finely tuned for life. He has written that the universe appears to be the product of an intelligent design. Though not necessarily an interventionist God of traditional theism. So he doesn't believe in like the God of the Bible who actually interacts with humans, but he does believe that some type of God had to create all of this because this is too perfect. Freeman Dyson, also a physicist. Dyson once stated that the universe in some ways behaves like a mind, indicating openness to a deistic interpretation of the cosmos, although he stopped short of full theological commitments. These are just a few. Oh, and then he's one of the most renowned. His name is Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence M. Krauss, Krauss. So, Lord willing, there was some edification tonight. Lord willing, we went into the science, astronomy and cosmology, understanding the universe and its origins, understanding the theories of fine-tuning and singularity, to hopefully give you some understanding to show and prove that God indeed exists. Through one of the more prominent studies that actually tries to disprove God. We have shown that God exists. Lord willing, there was some edification. Lord willing, there was some understanding given. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties. Usually we just straight PowerPoint, but we was running PowerPoint to the YouTube video back to us, and it was a little bit of a process. But Lord willing, there was some edification. I pray that y'all learned something. I pray that this strengthen your foundation for some people who, may not believe or who may be struggling in the faith. Some people who may be like, man, what if God don't exist? What if I'm doing this all for nothing? I'm hoping that Esau himself, through his studies and his knowledge and his science, can, affirm the fact that God does exist. Even through their reluctancy, they had to reluctantly say, yeah, God exists.
I want to make it very clear, right? These are not men who just decided off a whim that, hey, let me go see if I can prove that God exists or not exist, right? These are all men who, for their entire lives, believed that there was no God.
Sought to disprove God existed.
And sought to prove. They started with the idea that God doesn't exist and I'm going to prove it, right? And these are well-studied men, right? Who have helped prove many of other things, right? Couldn't verify their own beliefs and were intelligent enough and lacked what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't proud enough to admit when this is typical a lot of really good. Well, you have to have this if you're a really good scientist, right? You have to be able to side with the facts and override your feelings, right? And that's exactly what they did. They went into it trying to prove one thing. They couldn't do that, and they came to the understanding that, well, I'm not right on this. The evidence bears it out, and I have to change my stance.
Reluctantly, some of them, but they had to change their stance.
Right.
So all praise to the Most High, Lord willing. Some of y'all got something out of this, and Lord willing to strengthen y'all foundation. With that being said, you already know what it is. Every first Monday, which is next week, actually, Bible Q&A. Every Tuesday, Bible Basics. Every Wednesday, World History according to the Bible. Every second and fourth Thursday, we got to stick to the script. Every Friday, we got the lineup with my brother, Apostle Yashimai, the Blue Strip, followed by Room 144, followed by my segment, Sound Doctrine. Every Saturday, we got War for the Kingdom. That's 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And Bishop Tazayawan closes us out every Sabbath with Feed the Sheep. All praise to the Heavenly Father. Lord willing, y'all got something out of this. We love y'all, Israel. It's been another segment of Bible Basics with my brother Shahad and myself. We signing out. Shalom.
Shalom.